There's first and there's last. No one goes into a show for second. I just always been that type of person, all in or all out. Born and raised in, Fresno, ghetto, on welfare. My nickname then was Skinny Kenny. The KKK had a strong presence where I came from. Had to fight a lot just over the N-word. I was 100 times better as a martial artist than I ever could be as a bodybuilder. But there was just no money to be made way back then. Some of the things I was able to go through in bodybuilding is because of the discipline I had. Never say no, just shut your mouth and do it. Great athletes have an adversary that is equal to your greatness. That's the reason why you exceed. There's a drug that will help you in every aspect. When you say stories, really, what are you saying? I start using this word called, sports technology drugs because it's highly tech. The first time I tried to kill myself, I was a little over 11 years old. I still deal with suicidal thoughts. It's almost like a disease. Out of everything I've been through, molested, suicidal, homeless, on welfare, made millions, lost millions, bankrupt, made millions again. Still, there's a lesson to be learned. Your weakest moments, you're actually your strongest. You gotta be weak. You gotta surrender. If you woke up this morning, you're winning.
They say that the human race is doomed, that we have lost touch with our true nature, that the media has corrupted us, and that the planet has no future. I disagree. I believe that humanity is full of hope, and that our salvation lies within each one of us. My name is Brian Rose, and my job is to listen, the oldest method of learning known to man. Each week I seek out individuals that are changing the world, people who are living and thinking in a different way. Their stories will challenge your beliefs, make you question your choices, and perhaps inspire you to change. I never planned on doing any of this, but now I can't stop. Join me on this mission and make humanity something we can all be proud of.
It's time for you to man up, to once and for all tell your mind who the fuck is boss. I need a fucking answer. What's it gonna be? I don't know what it is about this fucking sport, but it attracts people that really need to do deep work on themselves.
I failed in this city. All these bad memories. I never really felt like I gave a fuck about me or my life. I almost killed myself,
Think about something that is going to drive you when it really hurts. Some kind of demon you want to fight.
This is not Pussy Man, this is Iron Man. Under pressure reveals true character. What are you gonna do? You're gonna be in Chattanooga, May 20th or what?
When it comes to bodybuilders in the 1990s, it doesn't get much better than Flex Wheeler. Just look at some of the routines he used to do on stage with DMX pumping in the background. But unfortunately, he came second to both Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman, never got the gold, and it's been haunting him ever since. He's also struggled with suicide issues, and he got very real with me in these leather chairs. I love Flex. I love his perspective. He's a fighter, and he continues to fight to this day, and I know you're gonna enjoy this incredible conversation with him. At Inside London Real, we're prepping for our Life Accelerator course, 18 high performance habits of some of the greatest guests on London Real. And then I personally mentor you for 6 weeks to get them done. It's all about accountability, folks. We get you to do the things you don't want to do in order to get the results that you want. Check it out at londonreal.tv.
London Real doesn't stop when the conversation ends. You see, that's when we get started. Because everything begins with a thought, and then comes the action. The London Real Academy is our global transformation platform. Here we bring together thousands of students from over 75 countries. Whether you want to build a profitable business from your passion, or learn to speak to inspire, or broadcast yourself with your very own podcast, or accelerate your life to become a high-performance person, we have the online accountability course and personal mentoring program that will make your dream a reality. Join us, and we'll take your life to the next level, together. Our next accelerator course is starting soon.
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Kenneth Flex Wheeler, the American professional bodybuilder once described by Arnold Schwarzenegger as one of the greatest he ever saw. You won the Arnold Classic 4 times and competed in Mr. Olympia throughout the 90s, notoriously coming second to both Dorian Yates in 93 and Ronnie Coleman in 98, who would then go on to hold the title for 8 years in a row. In 99, you were diagnosed with a rare kidney disease and announced your retirement from bodybuilding in 2000. Last year, you had a comeback and competed in the Mr. Olympia Classic Physique. Kenneth Flex, welcome to London Real.
It is such a tremendous honor to be on your show. As I said off the air, I mean, I think one of the greatest honors is just being able to go somewhere and be respected for what you've done, you know, not being seen for your color, your creed, or your race, or, you know, who you worship. That's just the greatest honor. So for you to even want me on your show is just, you have no idea. You have no idea. It's just a tremendous honor. So thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, and I just know this is going to be an incredible conversation from just meeting you right away. First off, what's it like coming into London? What are your memories of this place? And when you think of the UK, when you're back in Vegas or in Cali, what comes to mind?
Well, first, I mean, it's the historical. It's the beginning of everything. If you go back, you know, before Christ. So even when I was driving from London Heathrow, I was thinking about that with my driver's like, this is history. It's like, you know, my country, United States, we don't really have a history like that. But you think of China, you think of, you know, you think of the UK, you think of Russia. These are civilizations that form our normal civilization now. So that always come to mind. And just driving things that they take so for granted, just seeing castles and just buildings that's been standing for 2,000 and 3,000 years is just amazing for me. It's just beautiful. It's just pure history. Yeah.
And did you come over here and compete throughout the 90s?
Yeah, I did. I competed here twice. Once, I think, in Manchester, and then again in 99. Yeah, I think once in like 93 and once again in 99. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. And you competed against some Brits over the years as well. So.
Yeah. One guy that you mentioned, he kind of ruined the day a little bit for me. But no, I mean, in all honesty, you know, from where I come from and my upbringing, just to be on stage with great athletes is just a true gift, and it's a true honor. So it is what it is. I don't look at it as lost. I mean, when you are in the heat of a battle with somebody, it's win and lose. But once you step back from it, you look at what you've achieved, and now your name is etched in stone and stamped, and you know, time stamped. So it's just all about honors and respect, you know.
And I want to get into those years in the 90s. And I've been watching video on you right next to Dorian posing off, and you next to Ronnie, and just your routine, you know, back in 98, 99 was ridiculous. And I want to get to that stuff.
Sure.
But let's start in 1965 in Fresno, California. What is this young Kenneth like?
You know, so when I was asked to be on your show, I had to make a decision on how honest and open I was going to be. And for whatever reason, since the beginning of time, I've just been brutally honest about some of the worst things I've ever done and ever been, and my greats. So, I born and raised in Fresno ghetto, on welfare. Very difficult. It was very, very racial charged back then. The KKK had a strong presence where I came from. Had to fight a lot just over the N-word. Just it was a daily battle. Even just in your own neighborhood, just having to fight and stuff like that. But it was difficult for me because also there was no known knowledge about dyslexia, and I was tremendously dyslexic. So, at that time you're just called stupid, and they'll just put you in a corner. And I got tired of getting embarrassed by my teacher, because back then you had to go and write on a blackboard, unlike now. And I got to the point where I was so fed up of being embarrassed that I just started just being rebellious. So if the teacher said, can you come up and do this? I would say, F off. So immediately I get it. Back then we get paddling. So I get a paddle and I get sent to the office and I get sent home. But it started a routine for me because I felt more comfortable getting in trouble instead of you aware of my weakness and what that was. And then later on, just, dealing, with suicidal, the first time I tried to kill myself, I was a little over 11 years old. So it was a difficult life, but at the end of the day, I understand now that life is what you make it. So in various different sequences, I was given lemons, and I just learned now to make lemonade out of it and serve it so I can help other people who've been through similar things, and I can give it back, in a way that's positive. So you can always learn. So from the worst situation you ever been in, there's something you can learn from that. And it took me almost, probably 40 years to finally figure that out, and still deal with suicidal thoughts just all throughout my career. And even almost every day it's a challenge. I have to make it a conscious choice to, fight or flight. So it's different. It's not like it's something you want. It's almost like a disease, because you, I'd always get asked, well, how could you be suicidal? What about your kids? What about your life? And I think about that. But the sick thing about it is when you're really suicidal, you're forcing yourself to do it. So I don't want my kids to stand over my coffin. I don't even want to know what that feels like. So if I hurry up and pull this trigger, I only feel that as long as I'm here. So none of these things are stopping you. They're promoting you to hurry up and do it because you don't want to feel it. And you're aware that I'm only going to feel that as long as I'm here. So if I hurry up and get this over with, I don't have to feel that. I don't have to mourn. I don't have to have these thoughts. So, but Fresno was, I shamelessly say it's a good place to be from and no longer there, because it was really, really rough. But I think all small town mentalities are the same. No one's trying to achieve any greatness. You look in a big city, it's a hustle, it's a bustle. People are trying to become something. But in small little regions like that, people are just trying to survive, whether it's surviving on you and taking what you have, or taking advantage of you in any way. So, but still, there's a lesson to be learned. You don't have to become a product of your environment. You have to make a conscious choice to resist that.
What was the family unit like? Who was there and who wasn't there?
Unfortunately, again, it's a typical American family, a broken family. It's unfortunate, but it's more percentage of that than not in the United States. So I don't have a conscious visual thought of ever seeing my dad in my home, even though he had a presence in my life, but he was gone before I was even of age to be able to know who he was. So my mother was very, very strong figured. She had a very, very difficult upbringing. So we had to deal with a lot of things, a lot of anger from her. I think my oldest brother, she was barely 16 when she had him. And I was the second to the youngest. So she's already 5 deep in the children. So it was really difficult for her. So it was rough. We kind of had to take care of ourselves. We had to be responsible for ourselves, things that I think kids take, for granted now, keeping the house clean, not letting it burn down, just normal things. But I think in other ways, like I said, there's a positive side. It taught us how to take care of ourselves. So it helped us grow to be good men and women out of the family. So, but it was rough. I got abused a lot by my siblings. Got beat up a lot. I was the youngest at the time for a long time. So I think they just took the brunt of their anger out on me, and it manifested in me in a number of different ways. So it was interesting.
And the suicidal stuff, does that come from that kind of abusiveness when you were a kid, or do you think that's something else?
No, I truly know where it started. I vividly remember, even as I wrote in my book. So I was coming from church, and my grandmother, who raised me pretty much, she was rewarding me for going to church because my other siblings didn't go that time. So we're sitting at a bus stop, and the only credit card she had was to a major store called Wine Stocks back then, and they had a restaurant inside of it. So that was like the premier thing to do, right? If we go to Wine Stocks and eat. So she was going to take me there, and this kid gets off the bus, and he just walks up to me and goes, "Hey, my sister likes you. Here's her phone number." So, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember, my grandmother, as wise as she was, she just kind of looked away. And now I see it. She's looking away like, you know better than this. I'm not going to say nothing. So I took the number.
How old are you?
I think I'm like 11, 12, something like that. And I took the number, and I called the girl, and she invited me over. And this is how bad it is, because that could never happen in my home, but her whole family's there. So I knock on the door, she invites me in and takes me right to her bedroom. We have sex. And I don't know what's going on. I don't really understand it. Even though I got molested younger as a child, I didn't really understand that whole thing. And I just got up and left. And she ended up getting pregnant from it. So my thought was, here we are. My grandmother's trying to do the best she can to take care of all of us, a hardworking woman. And I've embarrassed my family. I've embarrassed her. And I just couldn't live with the thought that letting her down. So the thought of just taking my life just popped into my head. So I remember vividly getting on my moped, and, the off-ramp of a freeway, I drove up the off-ramp. I remember just sitting there, and it was storming and raining. And I was like, okay, I was trying to pick which vehicle. And it's sad, but I put so much thought process into it now that I think about it. I was trying to pick a vehicle to pull out in front of. So I'm on a little moped, and it's raining, so it doesn't have speed. So I'm like, well, what if I pull out in front of a car and they swerve? I'm embarrassed. What do I do? Or, what if I pull out in front of a car and it hits me and just mains me? So I said, okay, I got to pick a diesel, because they can't stop. They'll lock their brakes up, and they're going to skid. And I'm sitting there, and, diesels are going by, and I'm sobbing. I'm just really grappling with, honestly,
you're like
now
11, 12 years old.
Yeah. I'm just really, if you look at it, I'm just really grappling with evil and good, and I can't bring myself to do it. So then I go into a mindset that continues for the next 4 decades of, you're a coward. You can't even kill yourself. You don't deserve, geez, you can't do shit right. You get a girl pregnant, you can't even kill, you can't do nothing right. So it's that constant beating myself up. And I'm driving home, and I remember my sister boyfriend left a gun in the house, and she had it. So I kind of cheered myself up. I remember walking in the house, and my father looking at me, because we were staying, my grandmother, he was staying there now with my grandmother. He's like, "Boy, what's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Nothing. It was raining outside, and that was my excuse for crying. And I just walked in my sister's room. I was like, "Charlene, you still have that gun?" She goes, "Yeah, boy, why? Get out of here." I go, "Can I see it?" She goes, "No, get out of here." I'm like, you can't even do nothing. You can't even. So I continue, go down to my basement, and I'm just beating myself up more. So I remember watching TV and people ODing, and I'm like, well, we have some aspirin. And luckily the bottle was only half full. So I went back in my bedroom, and I took all the aspirin I could, and I laid down to go to sleep, and I just sobbed, going, okay, here it is. I did it. It's done now. And I just remember, just going to sleep, and then waking up to just hysteria, people shaking me and trying to talk to me. I couldn't really hear. And my grandmother was trying to wake me up, and she was trying to talk to me. And then again, I can just vividly remember she looking over on the counter of my bed and seeing a bottle of aspirin, and then looking at me and putting one and one, together, as wise as she is. So she snatched me and took me into the shower and called the ambulance, and they pumped my stomach. And at the time, I was dating a girl that I married, and later on, and we had a child from. And I remember them talking about it, what could he be so upset about? And they're like, oh, well, maybe he got into an argument, with Levita. And I let it go at that. I'm like, okay, I escaped, you know, I let them just think that, you know, and not know the real truth. And it kind of, you know, was just a spiral effect of dealing with that for the rest of my life.
Wow, that's some real darkness.
It truly is, yeah, and that's the key word. And I think, you know, and it's sad because I hear about people committing suicide all the time. And I think one of the last stories I heard was some famous actor, he jumped off of a rooftop. And for me, dealing with that and still dealing with it, my thought is, what type of pain was he going through to actually do that? And what a horrible way to die. And, you know, I know a lot of people, they say, how could you do that? You're selfish. It's truly more of that. It's such a dark battle that you can't handle on your own. And 9 times out of 10, the better of us who are like that, you never know it. We're the life of the party. You know, I remember a joke about this comedian was in town, and this guy, you know, he went to a doctor, and he's like, I'm really depressed, doc. You know, I'm very suicidal, you know, and the doctor said, I got it. I want you to go to see this comedian. He's going to change your life. And he looked at him and goes, I am that comedian, you know. And even like Robin Williams, guy made everyone laugh. I guarantee you that wasn't his first thought of doing that. It doesn't happen like that. But it is his whole life making so many, I remember him from Mork and Mindy.
Yeah, me too.
And just what type of anguish was he really in by himself? And that's it. I can be around a million people, but I'm in my own world. I'm going to act. I'm going to do that. I call myself one of the greatest chameleons that, you know, ever was, because I can be everything that you want me to be, but that has nothing to do with what's going on internally. So it's really dark.
Do you think all greatness comes from darkness somehow?
No, I truly know that all greatness comes from him. I truly know that, but we have choice. And that saying that goes, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. There goes the tug of war with evil. So it's always a yin and yang. And throughout my career, I know a lot of people would say, oh, he wasn't mentally tough. Well, obviously that wasn't the case. They didn't know what I was going through. But the thing about it is what I understood, as great as my gifts were, is that the way I looked and how I performed or whatever, my negative was equally as tugging. So that's the part that I had to deal with, that I always struggle with. So no, it's, you know, not to be biblical, but even in the Bible, it says, you know, a light is meant to be put on the top of the hill to light things up, not to be concealed in the darkness. There lies your power. Any actress, you yourself and your talent, it's not to be hidden. It's to be lit up and illuminated to allow other people to see and to believe. So no, it's just that, of course, if you're, you know, I always think about pastors, preachers, and, you know, you always hear a lot of times like their daughters or their son are the worst, or that pastor struggled and did something horrible. It makes sense, because if you get the leader, you get everyone else, they tumble after him, right? So if you're a pastor and you do something horribly wrong, which no one on this planet has never done nothing wrong, the only person who was blameless was killed anyway, right? He didn't do anything and he was killed. So you think you're gonna have a better life than him? So, but if you're a pastor of a huge congregation and you're caused to stumble, now the chance of that entire congregation is gonna stumble. I don't need to go and get the drug addict. He doesn't have any, I already got him. You know what I mean? So that's a dark and the evil. The evil already got the person who's down. I need to go get the guy who's on top in any fashion. And if I get him, then everyone that he's connected to is that domino effect. So it makes complete sense in this game of battle of you know, dark versus light.
And I definitely think that when you see someone at the top of their game or the top of their field, you know, getting there and pushing through all of that hardness. And when I see you, you know, on stage as one of the last 2 guys as Mr. Olympia, like, you know, people could say that, you know, you weren't in it mentally, but come on, you're there.
Yeah.
You've done the work, you've cut the weight, you're performing, you're at the top of your game outwards.
Right.
And well, we know inside you're battling with all sorts of things.
Yeah.
That obviously that's coming from there's got to be some darkness in there that's pushing you through that.
Yeah. You know, I just always internalize things, and even, you know, just saying that now, I was doing it before I even thought. I was internalizing when I was on the freeway, here I am systematically thinking all these things out, internalizing all of them, and thinking every step. So I've always been like that, and I've found that I have to accept who I am. Now move on, because I'm not going to beat this guy. I might as well make peace with him, take the battles that I can win, and lose the battles that I can't, and come back and fight another day, because those battles cause me to go and have suicidal thoughts. I can't get this guy. He knows every move before I make it. Make peace with him and move on. So in training in a gym, I was never visual. I know a lot of people that scream and this, that, and other, and they call themselves getting into their game face. I just internalize everything. I would just mentally think about it, and I didn't have to puff up or anything. It's all going on inside. It's like, what's that saying? Still waters run deep. So it can be very calm on the top, but there's like turbulence and avalanches and earthquakes going on beneath. You don't see that. That's kind of more the way I was. So inside, I'm going through literally hell, but I'm not going to show you that, because as a child of getting molested and taken advantage of and everything, I learned very quickly that if you show your weaknesses, there's going to be somebody there to exploit it in a bad way. So I quickly became, whatever I needed to be in whatever room, so that I didn't display those weaknesses. And even, the times that you talk about where you seen me, 1 and 2 and battling, I was terrified. Even though, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be an expert. I'm going to overdo it. I'm going to, I got this. That's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, oh my God, damn it. They're going to find out I'm a fraud. They're going to figure out I don't even belong to be here. Those were my thoughts. And I remember a lot of times I'd be on stage and I'd tap someone next to me. I'm like, look at this. In my mind, when I tapped them, now you're looking at him, you're not looking at me. I'm trying to take all focus off of me. But to everyone else, I'm being cocky or arrogant. And if I put my arm around somebody, you're not going to look at me. I just projected onto them. So I'm putting my arm around them because I want you to look at them. I don't want you to look at me. So
even
I don't know.
On stage, which is your time to shine. Yeah. It's just a mental battle going on.
It's really, it's really effed up.
And it is really heightened. It's probably just like an MMA fight, because everything's on the line, all the training.
Yeah.
You've been dieting. You're probably out of it mentally, really strained. Mm-hmm. And that's when you're battling those insecurities, right?
And it's ongoing. I mean, maybe I think more so than other sports, because even in MMA, there's an off season. Even though they train all year round, they got to start their training even more aggressively when they have a fight. For competitive bodybuilding on a global scale, our off season is our time to get better. And, first contest starts in February, last contest is in November. So you have just these few window times to get better. So there's no off season. We have to eat every 3 hours or 4 hours. That's 24 hours a day. We have to go and rest at certain times. So it was always a lifestyle for me where we couldn't turn off. It's not like you're a football player. Off season, you go off and have a great time. No, I mean, I guess some people manage it that way, but I had to be a creature of habit. I had to stay in this hell to be able to perform. I couldn't go out and look and say, wow, the sun is shining, because now I want to be a part of that. I don't want to be in this. So I had to stay submerged in there, and I had to almost do this reverse psychiatry where I believe that this is normal. Everybody else is effed up. They're out there having a good time. What's wrong with them? I had to convince myself to be able to stay in this harsh environment, but I knew in harsh environment, that's where diamond's created. That's where I'm at my best. Even though I'm incredibly unhappy and everything, I'm at my best. I'm in harmony, I'm training hard, and everything's going really well, but I'm not enjoying it. But I have to understand this is normal. This is a normal world, and everyone else is effed up and they got it wrong. That's the only way I could survive and do that. So it was always constant, and it just, I call it a toilet bowl effect, not to be gruesome, but you flush something down a toilet, it spins and goes down. So my thoughts would, as I'm getting closer to a show, spinning harder and harder, and then I would just go down as I'm on stage, and it would be, I'm just exhausted, and I would give in. And I would come up with these different antics to be able to throw people off, which to them would come across arrogant. And only few people who knew me knew what was really going on. So
that's fascinating.
Either that or just plumb crazy.
You mentioned, the molestation part. Is that hard for a big, strong, tough guy to mention that stuff? I've had a few guests on here. Mm-hmm. Most recently, John Joseph, who I'm doing this Ironman race with, and he's a tough, hardcore punk lead singer. And he said it took him years to physically write in his book about, being molested. And he said it was the hardest thing to do, but also the greatest thing he did, because it was really freeing.
Yeah.
Do you think about that?
Yeah. No, not when I came to grips about writing. So I was given, I don't know how, and it's just, things happen, right? Things just happen. They align and they're meant to happen. We have choices that we can alter them, but things happen. Everything that you've done to get you here, got you here to the person you are, to be able to do what you do. So I was just offered this book deal. This guy, I was at an event, a global event, and this guy walks by and he goes, wow, you should have this phone number, 1-800-BIG GUNS. I'm like, yeah, if I had a dime for every time I heard that, beat it. And he goes, no, you ever think about writing a book? I'm like, why? I go, who are you? He goes, and he goes, let me know when you want to write a book. Kept bugging me, like every 3 months for 2 years. You ready to write a book? I'm like, so I asked my friend, I go, what should I do? And he goes, don't do it. Don't write it. And his closest friend, his name is Robin Chain. He's like, don't write it. I'm like, why? And he goes, because unless you're going to be honest and tell the truth, don't write it. I go, but Robin, you know me. You know the things I've done. I'm not going to. He goes, don't write it. I go, why? They're offering me money. I'm going to just take the money and run. He goes, for every country that you've been in, that you've done something, you're going to lose those people. You're going to lose that connection because you lied. And everyone that you've done something with in the dark, that's all you have, Flex, is your name. You're going to lose it. So it took me a long time. And finally, when I got sick and diagnosed with my kidney disease, and then I start going back to reading the Bible and everything, and then realizing every last great person in the Bible done something horrific other than Jesus, done something horrific. And I'm like, wow, I never got that, and these are great men who were wrote about biblically, but done. So, okay, maybe I'm okay then. I have a chance of being decent, So as soon as I made that, I'm like, I already knew that I just had to tell everything. And from those different stories that I wrote biblically, I could relate to them. So I knew immediately that I had to talk about what I'd done and what I'd been through, because there's people out there that don't have my platform. They're still in the ghetto. They're still going through it. And if I share my story, maybe they can just maybe I can make it. He went through the same thing I did, and look at maybe. So I knew I had to immediately. And once that happened, it wasn't difficult. Probably the most difficult thing is my ghostwriter, who I had to sit down and do all these interviews with. It was reliving it, and that was probably the hardest part. And it was even times where she said, I need a break. I'll call you back in a few months, because it would just, it was hard for her, to deal with it. So that was probably the hardest part, is reliving it. But I knew I had to. It wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant because I was brutally honest about everything I've ever done. It wasn't pleasant, but I don't know. I just always been that type of person, all in or all out. And I knew that was the only way I was going to help people.
Therapeutic in a way?
I think what was more therapeutic was, so this is like pre-internet, right? So I could only communicate through magazines, and always back then, obviously magazines and literature is like 3 months behind, because of publications and all that. So I remember after I wrote my book, I made an announcement in Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine that I was an athlete for. And I just say I wrote a book. I'm talking about everything, I talk about me being suicidal and molested and homeless and welfare and beaten. If anybody ever been through anything like that, reach me somehow, reach me, and I want to help you. And then to everyone I ever done something wrong, I'm sorry. So what was really most gripping is understanding so many emails of people just been through some, wow. So I was like, okay, so I'm not alone, but this is really sad. I mean, two cases really stand out, and I won't say their names. One was a great MMA fighter who had been through some really horrific things, and he read my book and he contacted me and he goes, you've helped me, and I challenged him, now you go out and help. And he opened up a school. He stopped fighting, and he opened up a school, and this thing was trying to teach kids how to defend themselves, but it was the greater principle of right and wrong. And then there was another kid from Canada, broke up with his girlfriend. He was a teenager, broke up with his girlfriend, ruined him, right? Like most teenagers, they think it's the end of your life, like I did. Ran away from home. He was like middle, upper class, ran away from home, started doing drugs, ended up in, where is the place? Amsterdam. ended up in Amsterdam, no money. So now he's doing gay things for money, and he's a drug addict. And somehow he would go to this internet cafe and he would email me every once in a while. And throughout months, he would tell me a story and I would respond back and everything. And the last time we talked, I said, you know, why don't you try to go home? He goes, I can't, I'm embarrassed. I go, if you had a son who'd been through everything you've been through, and your son reached out to you and said, Dad, I want to come home, what would you do? And he said, I'd go get him. I said, give your parents that opportunity, man. And last time I heard from him, he had contacted him, went home, and he's doing great. But I'm like, just give him that opportunity, you know? And so it's sad how many people go through things like that. And even now, speaking in high school, I remember I was asked to speak at my son's high school, and I told my story and I said, how many people have struggled with suicide? And out of probably 600 students, probably over half put their hands up. And I'm like, so being a dad and understanding myself, being a chameleon, they can just be sitting in your house, your children, you don't know what they're going through. That's frightening. It's a bigger picture going on, you know? So that's the reason why I knew I had to just tell it all, you know? So out of everything I've been through, you know, molested, suicidal, you know, child molestation, homeless, on welfare, made millions, lost millions, bankrupt, made millions again. There's not too many hats I can't put on and not too many rooms that I can't sit in and be okay. So my thought is, you know, maybe somebody worn one or two of these hats. And if I tell my story, hopefully they can just dare to dream, which is, you know, no pun intended, the name of my book. And that's the reason why I came up, like, because kids, I don't think they dream anymore. You know, I used to go to bed and dream that I could be something, or just dream. Doesn't mean it's going to come true, but I think kids nowadays just dare to dream. That dream is stolen already. And if you can't dream to be something, then what are you left with, you know?
I want to get into all the bodybuilding stuff, but first I want to ask you about a gentleman that had a big effect on your life, and his name was Bruce Lee.
Yeah. As you see, I'm an emotional, you know, person, so you know, forgive me. Even like when I wrote the book, some things when I talk about just touch me. I can't do anything about it, but yeah, he pretty much saved my life. You know, I remember there was a recreation center. Back then they used to have recreation center like boys clubs, you know, but it was in our neighborhood and it was just like a place to go to, you know, to hang out. You could play pool or ping pong, you know, we didn't have any of that money. And I remember they would have these movies every once in a while and they showed Enter the Dragon. And I just sat there and I watched and I just fell in love with him. I got it. I was like, my God, you know, and here I am, a skinny little punk getting beat up every day, you know, at home and anywhere I walked up, people, hey, come over here, you know, just hand me my ass just for shits and giggles, you know. And right after the movie that they showed us, soon after, they started giving out, you know, free karate lessons. So I signed up and I was a little too young, but he let me anyway. And that was just the start of it all. Got into martial arts. I love it. It's as my instructor and like my mentor, he's like a big brother, a dad, everything to me. As he explained it, I was 100 times better as a martial artist than I ever could be as a bodybuilder. And he's the one who talked me into going into bodybuilding. He goes, bodybuilding's picked you, do that. So him knowing how good I was, he's like, you're 100 times better fighter, but it was just no money to be made way back then. But man, it was nothing better than that. And one of my greatest honors was Discovery Channel was doing a special on Bruce Lee, and they asked me to come and speak on camera, and I was like, wow. But just, you know, just somebody who just caused a ripple effect. I can't imagine how many people he helped, but I know he saved my life. Yeah, definitely.
And what did you see on the screen? What is probably the greatest movie ever made?
You know what? In his own way, he told a full story. Poverty, people being taken advantage of, people sexually being taken advantage of, and corruption. pretty much spells out my life as a child. And he fought and prevailed against it and stood for, right, even when I couldn't. As a little, skinny Kenny, I couldn't, but, this person that he was, he could. And even though I had no idea what I was going to become or no dreams of what I could be, at least I could look at him and see something who made it. And I think that just that little seed was somehow watered over years, and I am the person who I am now. And I truly believe that some of the things I was able to go through in bodybuilding is because of the discipline I had, as a martial artist. Just sitting there practicing over and over. It's not a team sport, it's an individual sport. It's discipline. And even my mentor, Ty McGuire, he would challenge me, So first, I couldn't afford to pay him, and I was training at another school, which was Halliburton School. And I seen him at a tournament, and he was just amazing. I was like, oh my God. And he was a few years older than me. He was a million years older than me as far as maturity. But we only separated, I think, like 5 years or something like that. And he said, come to my school, and in 1 year, you'll be the best fighter in California. And in 2 years, you'll be the best fighter, in the United States. Well, in 1 year, I was the best fighter in the United States. And I told him, I said, I don't have any money. He goes, don't worry about it. So he paid for all my school, all my equipment, all my training, and just took me on, as like a son, a mentor and everything. And but he's very mental, very disciplined, very, very disciplinary. And
he's hard on you.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he would hand me my butt, and I remember I would
like physically,
yeah,
like sparring with you, just brutal.
Yeah. And I remember I would ask him sometimes, I'm like, every time I go home, I'm in the shower, my face is burning. And he would never answer me. He would just start laughing and hang up for weeks. And I go, why do you do that? Why do you embarrass me? Why do you laugh? I go, my face stings. Why? And he goes, okay, go home and look in the mirror and pull your skin and tell me what you see. I'm like, all right. So I got off the phone and went and looked. I go, I see these little red lines everywhere. And he goes, and he just started laughing again. And I'm like, and he just hung up on me, right? And the next time I'm like, why do you do that? He goes, what do you think those are? And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, they're glove burns. I go, what do you mean glove burns? He goes, every time I touch you, it's a slight tear. That's the way boxers, they put on grease on their face. He goes, it's a glove burn. I'm like, why do you do that? Why do you beat me up in front of everybody? Why are you so hard on, if I'm the top student, why do you always make an example out of me? And he said, because I want you to be prepared. If I put you through this, there's nothing that you can't deal with out there. I was like, how come you can't just tell me that? He goes, because you're not ready to hear it yet. You have to live it. And I'm like, wow. And he would test me. He'd call me like 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, let's go practice. And if I said no, he wouldn't talk to me for weeks. I still go to school and everything. It wouldn't be that camaraderie-ship, that father, that mentorship. He would just be just normal. So I just learned just to never say no. I just like, okay. And we would go and like it's a football field, pitch dark, and we'd just kick up and down the field. Just practice kicking up and down the field. And that's brings me full circle. That's I think the reason why I was able to do what I was able to do on stage, because just what he beat into me, just train hard, be disciplined, never say no, just shut your mouth and do it. So that was just an inner strength that I had. And when people say he was mentally weak or whatever, I didn't have to, growl and show my teeth. It was just internal. I try to let my work, do the example for me, and I didn't have to be one of those bully guys who beat my chest and made everybody uncomfortable. I was actually the opposite. I didn't want to make people uncomfortable. I'm like, I hate that. When you walk in a room and you just I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to make people uncomfortable. I don't want to be that. So I would try to be the exact opposite of that. And almost, getting into arguments with people because I would try to be the exact opposite of what they look at. So if they looked at me as if I remember this one guy, very, tall, muscular guy, always intimidated me, but I just never said anything. I just kept to myself. I'd walk by him, and I remember, he just looked at me one day and he goes, "You are one intense brother." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Man, you come in the gym, you don't say hi to nobody." I go, "But you never said hi to me." I go, "So you have to say hi in order to see what type of person I am. I go, but most people just shun me off like I'm irritable. I go, I'm in here working. This is my job. So a lot of people just think I'm a jerk. I'm like, what? You thought that? You never even said anything to me? I go, that makes you the jerk, you know, because now that you're talking to me, I'm normal. Wow, talking to you, nothing like you like. I'm like, so exactly what did you think I was like, you know? So I just started being, you know, that person, and wrongfully I would project on them whatever image they had of me. I would make it true. If you thought I was a dick, yeah, I'm your dick. Yeah. If you thought I was nice, I would be myself, you know. And I would come up with these sayings. Yeah, I'm like the weather. If it's cold, I'll put a jacket on. And if it's hot, I'll take it off. That's how I would be around people, because I just did not want to be put in a box. Don't think I'm something until you talk to me. You know, don't look at me as a black person or a bald-headed person or, you know, a bodybuilder. I'm a human being. I'm just like you. You know, label me that.